I'm here to talk to you today about how we trap the 5 thieves of time by making work and flow visible. I want to start by asking you all a question. Imagine you woke up one fine morning and you looked at yourself in the mirror and you aged a month. With a quick show of hands, can you tell me how many of you would notice that? You woke up a morning and you aged a month. No one? Okay. You would notice that? Okay. Hair will grow, yeah. How about, you aged 5 years? How many of you would notice that? Okay. A little more than nobody, right? And then that goes on and on. When you wake up and you age like 10 years, you would notice that more. So that's the funny thing about time and the way time lost manifests itself, right? So we don't notice time lost until a big visible event has happened in our life. And more often than not, it's too late to do something about it at the time. So it's very important to catch time in the moment. When you catch it when you can act on it, so you catch it in the moment versus retrospectively. Retrospectively is good too. Not catching it at all is a little bad, right? And in the money time people conundrum, time is the one that is absolutely non-renewable as well. So which is why time is very valuable, and I'm here to talk about it today. And very quickly here, I want to introduce you to the 5 thieves of time. How many of you have heard of the 5 thieves of time or Dominica de Grandis? Okay, so that's where my inspiration comes from. I got introduced to the 5 thieves of time through Dominica de Grandis, who wrote the book Making Work Visible. You should definitely grab a copy of that if you haven't read that already. And that's where my aha went off, right? So I got introduced to the 5 thieves of time through Dominica de Grandis, while I also had the pleasure of listening to her talk at a conference in Orlando, US in 2019. And ever since then, I've been amazed at how I catch myself recognizing these thieves of time when they show up in my everyday. And when I'm able to catch it in the moment, I'm able to also do something different about it and get back my time from those 5 thieves. Now, most recently, I came face to face with them during my home building experience in India. And that's what I'm going to start with talking to you all about. And as I introduce you to them one by one, I'm sure you all will be able to draw a parallel to how these time thieves show up in your work and life experiences as well. So with that, let the journey begin. So here we were when we were back in Chennai about 1.5 years back. We set off on a hopeful and an exciting journey to build our dream home. And, we chose a new high-rise in a very well-designed neighborhood. And we picked a design partner from LiveSpace, who we thought would be able to bring our hopes and dreams to life. And, we thought all things are happy. We brainstormed on all aspects of the design itself for the home aspect. And we thought, okay, now it's time to chill. It's about getting down, doing and executing for the most part because the design is done. And then disaster struck. The thieves snuck in and wreaked havoc in our home building experience, right? This is how we came face to face with them. Now I'm going to quickly introduce you to the 5 thieves of time. The first thief, the thief of too much WIP. WIP as in work in progress. That's our first time thief that I'm going to talk to you all about. Now, as you can imagine, as we went about designing our home, we had a lot of things to tackle. We had a lot of design aspects to go after. One being lighting, interior design, furniture, appliances, whatnot, right? The plumbing, electrical, all of that stuff had to be taken care of as well. And me and my husband, we pushed the gas pedal on and we started making progress on all of these fronts at the same time. And lo and behold, you can imagine too many discussions, too many decisions to make, too many options to choose from each of these aspects. And before even we could realize, we had too much work in progress. And what consequently happened is that there was one civil decision that we had to get done. So this thing is not working properly. Am I pointing it right? Okay. So there was one civil aspect of it that had to get done on time. So the builder had told us that you have to, if you have any structural changes going on, your customization for your home, you need to get that done on time. And we had a delay of about 21 days that we couldn't get back to the builder on, because we had so many things that we had taken on at the same time and did not focus on the one thing that we could have gotten to done at that time. And as you can see, what's the time lost in all of this as well, right? Now, the thing about too much whip is, and why do we take too much whip? Let's take a few seconds to talk about that. One, I think we like to go behind all things new and shiny. We fear humiliation, right? We say, okay, we don't want to offend anybody by saying no. We generally are yes-sayers rather than no-sayers. And sometimes we don't realize how long something takes until we start to work on it. We could just, start by thinking, okay, this is going to take me just about a few hours, and then it ends up definitely taking much longer than that, right? So some of the major consequences of taking on too much work in progress is we have to do some context switching all the time, right? We go from, like you saw in my example, we had to go from looking at furniture to looking at civil to looking at plumbing. So we had to do this context switching all the time, and more often than not, your customer ends up waiting for long periods of time to get something done. In my case, it was the builder, right? The builder was waiting on me to get the structural changes, and he could not get that done on time. And it also results in, irritated staff and whatnot. And now I'm going to tell you how the second thief, the thief of unknown dependencies, kept giggling on me as we kept building our home. So, not the tech, not the manufacturing industry, and much to our dismay, not the construction industry has managed the art of managing dependencies, right? Definitely not. Now, even before we could have real cooks in our kitchen making some, delectable dishes, we had a lot of people building our kitchen for us. And, we had the designer, we had the designer, we had the builder, we had the electrician, and the modular installer. Now, all of them did their parts of, in their own silos to be able to get our kitchen up and running. And, when husband and I went in to do a quality check one day, we found that one of the modular units, we called it the tambour unit for people that are familiar, where we put in our mixers and grinders inside, right? So one of the modular units was placed right in front of an electrical socket, just thus making it extremely inaccessible, right? So we had to get a lot of rework done. We had to get the designer engaged again, the builder engaged again to cut the electrical sockets out, and all of that to finally make our the electrical socket accessible in the first place, which was an epic usability failure the first time around. Now, this is how we lose time to the thief of unknown dependencies. A little bit about what unknown dependencies are, right? So unknown dependencies is when you do not know. Unknown dependencies is when you aren't aware of something that needs to happen before you can finish something or you can get something to done. Sometimes this shows up, there are different types of dependencies that you can think of. One could be architectural dependencies, right, where, one piece of code needs to happen, or a change in one place can absolutely break another place. Second dependency, another type of dependency could be expertise, right, things that sit in the heads of people, tribal knowledge, subject matter expertise as we call it, or a person with a specific know-how that we need to depend on to get some things done. Or it could be as simple as an activity too, where progress cannot be made until you make progress on a particular activity, and that is not done. Again, some of the major consequences of unknown dependencies is you need a high amount of orchestration to have, say, project managers or program managers come in to get that alignment happen between those different functions and between those various groups. And once again, you can only be as fast as the slowest moving part of your team, right? So when you depend on somebody, when they're getting their delay done in their portion of the work, end of the day your whole unit of work goes for a toss. So it results in detrimenting the performance of the larger organization or the thing that you're looking to do as well. The next thief, the thief of unplanned work. Now, this is the false ceiling in our living room that we were going after. Okay, looks beautiful, isn't it? And we picked this design. So my husband and I, again, we were very happy that we picked a design that both of us kind of loved and fit in on. And we decided to move forward with making these, the profile light solutions. And then we kept going on to day 33. Right on day 33, again terror struck, unplanned work cropped up. Our builder called us and said, "Ma'am, we have a problem. The sprinkler pipes that were supposed to be ahead of the ceiling that you see here, they are now going to be routed through the living room ceiling. And, I had to get the false ceiling dropped to about 3 inches below what I was going to originally, do for." Now, you can imagine from day 33, we came all the way down to day 0. Because we couldn't envision and get our work done like the way we had planned for, like the way we had imagined. We had to do a lot of replanning because this work was unanticipated or totally unplanned on behalf of the builder. Right? So we had to do, once again, we had to design a false ceiling that kind of fit the needs of now this going about 3 inches below the original height. We had to redo our lighting solution to see what fit in the new design. And even we had to go as far as to reselect our fan options once again, because now that the depth had come down, we had the fan rod, which was now not 6 inches but a 3 inches rod. So we had to do more hugger fans and such. Those were the models that we had to opt out from. So what ended up having should have looked like this now looks like this, right? Where we had to drop the false ceiling height itself. Now, unplanned work, what it does is it adds a lot of unpredictability to your system, right? So it steals away a lot of time from your planned work and, delays the planned work as well. Now, sometimes we just have to, take a pause and not do any of the planned work. We have to put all of that on pause to attend to unplanned work. And until we keep, constantly stepping up, over-functioning and stretching, it is pretty much impossible to do both your planned work and your unplanned work and complete all of them as well. So again, it would be very delusional for me to say that you can have unplanned work or bring them down to 0, because it's absolutely going to happen. We all work in complex agile environments where change is to be expected. But I'm going to talk to you a little later in this presentation about how to tackle unplanned works as well. The next thief, the fourth thief, the thief of conflicting priorities. Now I'm going to take you to my dining space, right, where the dining space was being painted by our painter. And, he was going on a path, he was going in a flow, and he was painting all through the house, and he was getting my dining space painted. Now the AC technician popped in one fine day and said, I need to install the AC in the dining room, right? And the painter had to put his work on hold. He was going in a flow. He had to put his work on hold and wait till the AC technician completed his work before he could pursue and go down the path of his flow again. Did you see how the thief of conflicting priorities was giggling there right in the corner of the house? Right? So that, and another example as well that I have in terms of interior lighting. Again, my electrician was going through building the whole home electricals around the house, and the modular installer guy came in and said, I want to do my, I want to check in on my under cabinet lighting. Now, again, the electrician had to stop what he was doing, go help the modular installer out, get him unblocked, and then, go get on to do his work again. So you can see how many interrupts are there. Now, coming to think of it retrospectively, right, I thought about what is high priority and what's low priority. Could I have set aside the work that was scheduled for the AC technician or the modular installer till the time the painter and the electrician had done their job to its fullest, right? Could they have taken those things to done before I had let, other things interrupt? Could I have said those things? Could I have, deprioritized those things till I had more capacity to do them? Now, the thing with conflicting priorities is that it often shows up when you absolutely aren't aware or you cannot agree on what to work on at any point in time. Right? We're all familiar with how prioritization works within our world. So without reducing the WIP. By reducing the WIP or the work in progress, actually you can effectively prioritize, because there are fewer things now vying for your attention. And if you do not prioritize effectively, what is going to happen is you're going to end up taking in too much at the same time, and everything is going to take longer. So that's when the time thieves, just giggle at you and then take away all your time from you. So it's very important to have a prioritization strategy in place to say what's important and what's not. What's not right now, right? Everything is important to get done, but everything has a time and place. So you decide for yourself as to what's the right thing to do at what point in time. The last thief, the thief of neglected work. I'm going to take you back to my false ceiling. And this is the list of backlog that we had to get the entire false ceiling done. So we had some framing to do, we had electrical wiring to do, we had to get the gypsum boards up, we had to do the putty, primer and the painting throughout the house, and we had a whole home automation going on, so we had to get the testing done around that. Now, we got the first two done, we got the second and the third backlog done, we put in more items from our backlog because we had a home theater installation that had to be done, so we did speaker cutouts, light cutouts for all of that. Of course, we had to do patchwork because we did the cutouts, so we did that. But all through this time, do you see what got neglected? We did not pick up the whole home automation testing that had to do. We just left it in the backlog, totally neglected. Now, finally, when we got around to pick that up and get it done, it utterly failed. It did not work. Now, can you imagine all the things that I had to do to be able to get that to work again? We had to do a whole lot of rewiring around the house. And we, of course, since we cut that out again, we had to do the patchwork once again around all of that. And finally, we got the home automation testing to work for us. Right? And you can see how much time elapsed because we neglected what had to be done incrementally to be able to, make full value of what I was trying to get out of. Now we do this in our everyday life. There are some other neglected work that we do in everyday life. Our car engine keeps beeping for check engine, and we snooze it, we let it settle, we don't get to it until, one fine day the car breaks down and then we're like, oh my God, I should have done that day. Right? So there are several examples of that as to how it shows up in our everyday lives, but this is something to be very cautious about. Now that, the thing with neglected work is all it needs is your attention before the whole house is on fire. Right? Before everything is on fire, you just need to pay attention to it. Have some, aging visuals as to what have I left undone that I should be looking to do that right now. So continuously retrospect and inspect your backlog that needs to be taken care of before, it comes in, hits you real hard at a later point in time. Now that summarizes how I wanted to introduce the 5 thieves to you so that they stick. And I'm going to quickly jump to my work context right now during the second half of the presentation and tell you how we trap these 5 thieves at work. And 1, how we identify them. 2, how we expose the thieves, and 3, what can we do about it? Okay, the thieves have come up, they've shown up at my work. How do I trap them and do something different to be able to take my time back? Like I said, the first point is about the technique is about making your work and flow visible, right? Whether you do it in, virtual boards using your technology, whatever ALM software that you're using, Jira, version 1, Rally, anything that you use, the first step is to make your work and flow visible. You could, if you don't have a board, or even if you have to do it at home, you could use a simple whiteboard like that or a cardboard where you're able to visualize your work. The first step, again, is to make our work and flow visible. The second step is to analyze our flow, right? Look at where we are stuck. Where are you bottlenecked, right? Where is there time crunch? And then look at, derive some qualitative insight. So this is where it's a little outside of quantity and being data driven, right? Where it's very important to have conversations with your team around any qualitative insights that you can derive out of that. And expose those thieves through flow metrics. I'm going to introduce them to you in a bit here. And also take corrective measures, because you now have metrics that you know what they are in the moment and what you need them to be in a very ideal state. So how did we make our work and flow visible? Like I said, I'm sure how many of you here are familiar with Kanban? Most of you. Okay, that makes my job easy. So how we made our work visible is just by using a very simple Kanban board. Right? Kanban, as you know, is a very lean, lightweight framework that helps to bring transparency to your system of work. That's all it does, right? So it helps you see your work as it is. Everybody looking at it together has full transparency. It enables transparency. It shows you where your things are. It helps you make decisions. And, it's like reading the same page, same paragraph all together in a book at the same time, right? So this is what we used. And a quick glimpse of how we envisioned our product development workflow. So what you see here in the top part of the section is what we call our epic workflow, epic or feature. So epic in our world, in our context, is the largest unit of work that we actually take through our product development workflow. Whatever it is within your context, you could do that. So this part is my epic workflow. So everything that you see here is the phases in which my epic goes through my product development lifecycle, right? So from the time it gets into a prioritized quarterly wish list, and then we have some ideation going on in order to do high-level solutioning of our feature or capability. Backed into tech design, we do refinement, which is a part of our sprint ceremonies or scrum ceremonies within the team. Ready for dev is a waiting pipeline where you're creating a healthy backlog for your dev teams to pick up and chew on during in development. And in development, of course, everything engineering and your readiness, right? Your readiness around your non-functional requirements, performance testing, and all that good stuff that needs to be done within the in development phase. And then the engineering launch, which is pretty much our code freeze, where from an engineering point of view, I'm done and dusted. After that, my release engineering activities kicks in if you have one at that as well. And of course, for our launch segments or our launch strategies, we actually have a public beta or a private beta if you want to do it with selected customers, or we also do a soft launch where we a very gradient type of a rollout, where we enable to lower plan customers first, and then during the marketing launch to the customers on all our enterprise and pro plans as well. And finally, the end state is the general availability, where we offer 100% localization, right? Where all our tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 language support is there. So it's generally available. The epic is generally available. Now, the second part of this section is where it must be familiar to you in terms of your story. This is what my teams look at from a Scrum board. So it's a child of a epic, and it's at the story level what it goes through. Now, the core tenets that we came up with for establishing this workflow, first one is the states. States is what I just talked to you about, the phases in which your product goes through. The second tenet is the policies, right? Policies, you can think about it as your exit criteria. You can think about it as your definition of done for that state. So what needs to be true for a card to come out from one state and get to another state, right? So that's your policies. The third tenet is ownership, right? Who is the DRI? Who is the directly responsible individual or the function that is responsible to ensure that all of these exit criteria in a particular state is taken care of before something goes to the next state. And the last one is around documentation as well. So we had an opportunity with documentation within our current context where, we wanted to ensure that we improve on our tech design and our ideation documents. So that's where we pulled that into our workflow and said, here, okay, coming out of this state, we're going to have our, what we call our I2P or ideation to product templates ready, documented, our tech design, high level solutioning is done and all of that. So we integrated that as part of our workflow as well. So I'm going to this is the time when I'm going to introduce the flow metrics very quickly to you, because these are key for your measurement of your workflow. The first one is flow load. Flow load is work started but not finished. It indicates the amount of WIP that you have. It helps you answer the question, are you doing too many things at the same time resulting in undesired consequences, right? So the flow load is the first metric. Flow load, the higher the worse, right? It needs to be low. So you're going after the low numbers here for flow load. Please remember that. The second one is flow time. Flow time is nothing but your cycle time, lead time. Those are terms that you must be very familiar with. So this is when a clock starts, when work begins, and the end state is when your customer can consume your value. And it usually answers the question of how long does something actually take to do. The third one is flow efficiency. Flow efficiency is your active time, or the time that you're working on something, divided by your total time, which is your work plus your wait times. And here we're looking for higher numbers. The higher the flow efficiency, the better. Last one, the fourth one is flow velocity. Flow velocity, velocity, throughput. So it's just the number to measure your, your speed, and it's an indicator of, gauging your capacity. You can plan using your flow velocity as well. It's a measure of throughput. Last one is the flow distribution, where you're looking at your product as a whole, and you're looking to see what is my flow allocation look like. Am I building too many features and not focusing on bugs? Is my backlog skewed? Whatever I execute, is my backlog skewed in that first place? Now I'm going to take you back to my work context and reintroduce these 5 time thieves to you and tell you how we applied each of these techniques. So the first one, we had an objective of having a dev-ready backlog. Like I told you, we had a need for a healthy backlog, right? Before sprint development can start, the devs can start working on the epic or the capability. So we wanted to have a dev-ready backlog before the start of a quarter for the particular quarter in question, in order to make high confidence commitments towards our product roadmap for the next immediate quarter. Now we observed that there was one quarter in which we could only make very few high confidence commitments. Most of our commitments were very low in terms of confidence because the backlog was not dev ready. And the people that were involved in the product ideation constantly said they were busy all the time, right? So that was the nature of the problem. And our flow was restricted. Now, how this came to life, or how we visualize this, this is the Kanban board like I was talking to you about. And the first time around, from our prioritized wish list of about 6 items, we picked up 5 items in product ideation, and we kept going down the path. And one thing to note here is that in product ideation, the designer, what we call the PAD team, the product manager, the designer, and the architect, technical architect, these are the people responsible for taking things moving out of the product ideation state, are involved in this step. And on day 55, on day 70, right, you can see there was only 1 card in ready for dev. So we were only able to get 1 item to dev ready in the product backlog. Now, so 1 item with commitment of high confidence. There were 5 items that were low confidence because they were sitting somewhere here in the workflow. And the average number of days in product ideation state was about 55. Now the second round, we wanted to limit our WIP and see, since it was the same number of people that were involved in this product ideation, we wanted to limit our work in progress, pick a fewer items and see what was the throughput. So that was the experiment that we did. Now this time around, as you can see, from our prioritized wish list of 6, we pulled in about 3, and we were able to get 2 items into ready for dev, which is twice as much as what we could get to dev ready in the previous cycle, right? So in this way, again, our high confidence commitments doubled up. Of course, the average days that you see here, this is important too, right? Because it's very important that the flow time is dependent on the average number of days that something spends in a particular state. So from 55, the number of days a particular epic card spent in product ideation dropped down to about 30. So all this happened by just limiting the amount of work in progress item that this crew took on to be able to ship to the next phase. Now, with unknown dependencies, we had an objective to complete development, of course, like all of us, with the highest possible efficiency and speed. And we found that things took longer than estimated to get to release readiness. So the engineering launch that I was talking about, if you can recall, which is our code freeze, right? So things were taking longer than estimated to get to that release readiness status. And when we spoke to that small team, when we retrospected quickly, the cause was attributed to low-level design guidelines that were surfacing very, very late in the flow during development. Now, when we made work visible, this is what it looked like. This is how the problem exposed itself, right? So from in development to done, that is how we are measuring flow time here. And as you can see, at the end of the sprint iteration, day 9, I had one story that was done. And if you can see, there are 4 stories that are in ready for review or in review status, right? And it was taking a long time to get that done. One story in done state, and our flow efficiency, which is work time versus total time, was very less. It was only 25%. And our flow time was 9 days. It was taking one story was taking about 9 days to get through the sprint cycle. And the experiment that we did was we talked to our developers, and what we found was that after in development, after a story was developed, when they went back for code review with the technical architects, that's when these low-level design guidelines surfaced, right? So we put in a practice. So this is the qualitative insights that I'm talking about, right? So we put in a practice for when a story is picked up for a sprint for in development, the engineer reviews the design with the technical architect so that there's alignment there before even you can start coding, right? And when we did that, what we found was that at the end of the sprint, the flow increased when we reduced the days in state review, and at the end of the sprint, we now had 4 stories in in done state and nothing in ready for review. So our flow efficiency as well improved from 25% to 50%, and our flow time as well reduced from about 9 days to 7 days when we did this. The next thief around unplanned work, again, we refer to this very lovingly as interruptions of the day, right? What comes in between when you're going after a plan and interrupts your day. So, our objective again here was to be able to finish everything that we had planned at the beginning of the quarter, and that falls into our sprint timelines as well, on time, on plan. And some of the observations was a lot of things in planned weren't getting to done. And when, of course, there'll be a lot of people asking you when things don't get done, and we weren't able to give any attributable delays. We were not able to explain the delays as well as we should have or could have. In visualizing our work, again, this is what cropped in. We had 4 things in the backlog to do, and at the end of the sprint, again, we got 2 things to done. We realized that the team had a high flow load and a high flow time. Now, when the team was left wondering where did all the time go, because we had 4, we did 2, but none of the developers were sitting twiddling their thumbs, right? So they were working on something, but where did all the time go? We realized that there was a lot of unplanned work in the system that wasn't made visible. So there was a major incident from prod that the team had handled. There was an urgent customer commitment that came up mid-sprint that the team had to handle and get done. That work got done. We had a corporate priority around a security threat that came up. That work got done. We had a common testing support across our business unit that almost all the teams had to do. So the team ended up doing that. But none of this work was visible. Right? It was not visible on a board, and it entirely took up the development team's capacity. And so the first thing, again, now that you have this information, you can choose to do something different about it, right? So what we did, the first step is to make your unplanned work visible on your Kanban board. So that's the first step. So that's what we did. The second step that we did was we also made an attempt to see if any of those unplanned work could be switched to a planned work where you could reserve capacity. Right? So 2 examples that we took were around, so looking at yesterday's weather, that's how we look at sprint velocity and we plan, right? So we looked at, the previous 4 sprints or iterations, and we found that we were at least catering to 1 urgent customer commitment in a sprint. So that was our VIP for urgent customer commitment. So what we did the next time around is we planned for it. We allocated capacity for having to do that urgent customer commitment if that came up. There was also another thing that we tried to switch from unplanned to plan. Before the start of the quarter, the testing support that I told you that used to come in very ad hoc, we made an effort across our business unit to be able to capture all those requests, decide or define the quantum of work, and allocate capacity for the testing support as well. So there were 2 work streams that we switched to unplanned. And lo and behold, we were able to see very different results the next time around, where our flow load reduced to about 20% and our flow time reduced to about 7 days, and our predictability improved too. Remember, when we talk about unplanned work, what unplanned work does is it adds unpredictability to your system, right? So when you plan for it, when you reserve capacity for it, this is your opportunity to kill your whip and be able to do something different about it as well. The next thief, the fourth thief, conflicting priorities. Again, our product manager wanted to get one important thing out the door. That was the number one priority for our product manager. And if not anything, he wanted to get that one thing out the door for our customers. And during the course of the quarter, a lot of parallel work streams emerged, and that required capacity from the team. And for the team, everything felt valuable. Everything felt important. So they kept context switching between these priorities, and they kept attempting to do everything. That's what I should say, right? And end of the day, we weren't able to keep up the customer commitment date. We were not able to meet the date targets on that one important thing that was important for our product manager. Again, how we visualize that mid-quarter is, we usually have swim lanes for our cadence work, which is things like your monthly business report and such, where you have a drop-dead date by which that thing needs to be done, right? So that's our BAU, or business as usual work streams that we do. We a swim lane for the feature requests, and a swim lane for our tech debts and improvements that we want to make. And what we identified during the course of the quarter was, we got one request in the expedited swim lane around a data localization that we had to do. Now, just by visualizing this work, what came to the forefront is that there was a lot of things, as you can see, in doing, right? The team, when they were able to visualize the work, they found that this is too much whip than what we can handle. Now, this warrants a conversation. Again, I'm going to take you back to the conversations that are very important. So the product manager and development team sits together and talks about, okay, I'm not going to be able to take all of these things to done this sprint, this iteration, this quarter. Now, tell me what your priorities are. Right? And what we decided, what the product manager said was, this sprint, we're going to, deprioritize this. Let's get to this. Let's set this aside when we have more capacity to do. So we decided to refactor the customer registration a little later. Now, by doing that, once again, we were able to, get all of the work that we had actually planned for, and the most important thing for the product manager, complete in time. So the key thing here around conflicting priorities is to make sure your work is visible. You have your prioritization strategies in place, which says, if I have to handle more whip, what is the strategy that I'm going to use, right? Do I have a point of view before going into the quarter on, if something comes up, what is that one thing that I'm going to deprioritize or set aside for a later time when I have more capacity to do? And the last thief, the thief of neglected work. Again, we look for completeness and continuous improvement all the time in our product. So our goal here was to deliver a high quality product that is very rounded, that's very complete in nature. And some of the observations are, we had multiple, I was talking to you about the ideation phase, right? So during that phase, we had a lot of trade-off conversations around cutting scope. Okay, cut this scope, cut this corner, cut that corner, right? So those conversations we were having, and no tech debt prioritized, say, for a consecutive 4 sprints or 4 iterations, or however you look at them in your context too. Again, some of the causal effects that this could lead to is when your performance degradation related outages increase over time, or despite adding a lot of features continuously to your product, your customer NPS or your customer sentiments either stay flat or they sometimes tend to go down as well. Now, we had 2 swim lanes for feature requests and tech improvements. Of course, we had WIP limit established for each one of them. And for this first round, the team worked on more feature requests than any other type of backlogs, right? So as you can see, more things got done here. And though our WIP limit was 2 on the tech improvements, we're not making any progress on those. Those are just staying as is, right? And when you also side by side look at your quality metrics, what we found was that our aging, so we had an aging bug backlog, right? Where though you're putting more features out, you are not squashing as many bugs as you should be. So slowly there's a scope creep on your aging bug backlog as well. And it's a classic case of neglected work, right? Your flow allocation, as you can see, is very skewed. You have 90% features done all the time, less focus on the other types of backlogs that you're going after. And all we had to do was introduce, we add a new swim lane for work type bugs, set a work limit or a WIP limit for that. And we make sure that the flow is constantly monitored to ensure that we're making progress on all of the work types, all of the work streams, whether it's features, whether it's bug fixes, or whether it's tech improvements. And lo and behold, the team also took on a 3-day bug bash to be able to accelerate and close out on a lot of bugs to be able to catch up. Now with that, we were able to look at our flow distribution. You remember we spoke about that last, which is the work item type allocation. We had intentionally made a decision to drop on the number of features that we would do, and for a small period of time improve on our bugs and improve on our tech improvements that we should do. So with the flow distribution allocation, we were able to see for ourselves that we were able to get to a more balanced flow distribution, where we could get a more complete, rounded product out there to the market as well. Of course, all of this needs the product manager to bless the amount of capacity that goes into all of that. So that conversation is very critical to this whole part as well. Now, the fag end of the presentation itself, and of course I'll take any questions that you have at the end of it, but if there are 3 key takeaways that I have for you all at the end of this is: 1, make your work visible. Make all your work entities and your types visible. The second, identify the thieves, right? When you identify the thieves, you do it using your visual boards. You expose your WIP or your work in progress. You expose your dependencies using a dependency matrix, however you do that within your world. You unmask your unplanned work. Do not keep it hidden. Unmask your unplanned work. Visualize your priorities. Have your prioritization strategies in place. The last one, create aging visuals to have in your back pocket, to have a look at what is your neglected backlog that's sitting out there, so that you can make an effort to make your backlog more balanced as well. And the last one, which is key, is trapping the thieves. This is where your continuous improvement, inspect and adapt cycle kicks in, where you're measuring your flow using flow metrics or any other metrics that you use, relevant metrics that you use in your organization, baseline them, review them, and then improve your practices. Again, qualitative insights, right? When you see something, you do something about it. So you improve your practices and processes and try different experiments, and then recalibrate on your flow metrics. So these are the 3 things that I want you to take away. And if there's one thing that I took away is, if I had made this work visible, if I had to pull the whole construction crew together to be able to make work visible, I would have actually done this presentation sitting in my new home and not at my parents' couch like I did. Thank you.